Hey everyone, welcome to a 2020 Tesla Model S Long Range Plus. So this is the first Tesla of the channel, our second EV. We'll be making some slight comparisons to the Ioniq 5, but obviously these are in different price points, so we won't make too many comparisons. With that being said, this Model S in particular has about 70,000 miles on it. So obviously it's used, it's a couple years old, so we'll get to talk about some of the maintenance items that this car might have to address. So with that being said, the interior is quite nice. Obviously we have the oak wood. It's like, feels somewhat real, but not really. Obviously beige seats. Not my particular choice. I would have gone with the darker option seats, but that's fine. I do think it kind of predates the car a little bit, but most of the interior is just focused on this gigantic screen anyways. So getting into a Tesla for the first time, I will say that you can be overwhelmed quickly. There's so many options, so many things to do all in this center screen. Like even when it comes to unlocking the doors, say you are picking someone up, you have to do that here, which I would have just preferred to have a button. Not only do you have to unlock the doors through the screen, but you also can adjust things like the steering feel. You can go to comfort, sport. There's also a chill acceleration mode. I'm assuming it just makes it so your throttle response is lessened so that you don't break people's necks that are in your passenger seat. And then the option that I've actually liked is the regenerative braking. So there's low and standard. And so what standard does is it actually makes it so the regenerative braking is more, and you can drive with essentially one pedal. I've been driving with this mode for a full day now, and I will say that I've only had to use the brake pedal like once or twice. I actually kind of like it, but it's definitely hard to get used to. Applying some brakes here because you have to use a little more force. And maybe we'll test some of this acceleration. The car is really quick. The 0 to 60 listed here makes it so you can really feel the acceleration quite quickly, and there's no noise. So there's no theater in it. So if you have passengers, you will easily make them sick. Say hi to another Tesla.
Is that the same model? No,
that's a 3.
There's no handles.
Yep, and there's no grip handles for my poor passenger here. But with that being said, you will have plenty of passing power on the highway. You will pass anyone and anything on the road. There's only a few cars that are honestly faster 0 to 60, especially because with an EV, the instant torque in this Model S, like, you just fly. But that also means that you can get carried away with your speeds. The ride is quite comfortable and nice. It's smooth. So you can definitely be up in the speeds, so make sure that you're always checking the speed limit and obviously adjusting your driving accordingly. As far as the seat quality goes, these are a nice leather seat. They're not very aggressively bolstered, so you'll definitely slide in them, but it's better than them gripping you too tight. I would say that overall, this Tesla Model S, obviously this is not the Plaid, the performance one. This is more of, I would say, the road trip car. And so I will say, if you pick up one of these Teslas, definitely spend your first week just going through all of the menu settings and get acquainted to where things are. Because it's pretty easy to get lost in finding a particular thing that you're looking for, whether it be like turning on your heated seats or adjusting your suspension, which this one has that option to, or even just opening your charging port, like things like that. You definitely need to get accustomed to having everything through the screen. As far as buttons go, actual physical buttons, on the steering wheel we have, we can adjust like a small menu within our gauge cluster. I will say that you can only do a few things on it. The menu shows temperature, fan speed, display brightness, and then you can make calls. And really that's it. I wish there were a couple more settings through this menu, and correct me if I'm wrong, but really that's the only thing that I've been able to do. And then on the left side, you can turn up and down your volume. I will say when you turn up and down the volume, it stays on one number for a few intervals. So you'll go to 5, you'll do like 1 or 2 more, and then you'll go to 6. Like, it's not instant like 5 to 6 to 7 to 8. It's like 5, you scroll a couple more, you go to 6, scroll a couple more, you go to 7. And it's not like a sensitivity issue, like the volume still goes up when it's within 5, for instance, but it requires a couple moves to go to 6. It's weird. I will also say in this gauge cluster, you won't be able to see it right now, but you can look at cars in front of you, to the side of you, behind you. You can also see, my favorite usage for it is actually seeing lights that are within like sun glare. So if you're looking up and trying to see if the light's green or not, and you can't because the sun's blocking it, your camera will still pick it up and it'll show you. And actually sometimes I found that the car has chimed at me when the light turns green, which is just a good reminder, but obviously don't use that as an excuse to be looking at your phone, even if you're stopped. And so I'll also say the steering wheel is like a nice leather. It's a good shape, and it's got like good bolstering to it, like it's quite big. And it's pretty easy to put your hands on like 9 and 3, I would say, as far as like looking at a clock goes. With that being said, choose the full round wheel if you're going to spec one of these. Do not get the stupid yoke. It's just silly. Don't do that. Wheels were made to be round. As far as visibility goes, you have plenty out your left and right mirror, like to your sides, and all the cameras and monitoring that this car has definitely makes it easier to navigate the roads. But I will say that the rear visibility is piss poor. You can't really see behind you. The rear window is very small, and the mirror they give you is even smaller. So with that being said, I would definitely buy like an aftermarket, just larger like mirror that can go over this one. But as far as the rear windshield, you really can't do anything about that. Luckily, I guess this car is so fast that you won't really need to worry what's behind you, unless you're backing up, of course. But that brings me to my next point. The rear camera is really good. It's got these 2 side cameras too, so you can see what's like what you're backing up into, if there's something on the side of you, and the rear camera itself, like right in the directly behind the car, is great. It's high quality, and obviously shows up on this big old screen here. I will say my one pet peeve, and I'm sure you can turn this off in the settings somewhere, but like I said, the settings are just a maze. It's a complete maze. I would want to turn off the chiming and the beeping, because it always makes me feel like I'm backing into something, even though I'm not really necessarily that close to it. Like, if you have a car on your left and your right side when you're backing up into a spot, it'll beep at you the entire time. Even when you're like fully into the spot, it'll say there's cars to your sides, because of course there is. So this Tesla Model S is also equipped with the full self-driving. Since this is a beta software, I'm not going to be trying it. So the range on this Tesla Model S is pretty good. Charging experience wise, I went to a fast charger, and I was getting about 57 to 65 kilowatts an hour for charging rate, which is actually on the slower end for these cars. But I was also next to someone on the charging station, which they say actually not to be, because when you're next to someone, I guess it uses, you know, you guys are both charging, it's, you know, you're both using, you know, from the same power source, I guess, so it slows down the charging significantly. And I think whoever is like the lowest gets priority over the charger too, essentially. So whoever has the lowest percentage of battery gets to charge faster. But with that being said, like, there's a lot of shopping malls you can just go into and put your car on the charger and come back and it's charged. I went from, I believe it was like 30% to 80%, and it was $12, so fairly inexpensive, even, you know, compared to gas prices right now too, which is good. As far as legroom and room for passengers, there's plenty. I'm sitting next to my passenger right now, and I'm very far away from them, and I also have plenty of legroom. There's 4-way adjustability in the seat, so you can definitely get cozy during a road trip, which is good. Something you definitely have to get used to in these cars too is the gear selector. You know, although there's a lever, it's just like it's almost like a turnstock. So you kind of have to look a couple times to see if like you're in drive or reverse or park. In park, you just press down. So it's definitely something to get used to if you're coming from an internal combustion engine car, which most people are. So just to make a few comparisons to the Ioniq 5, obviously it's a different shaped car, it's a different orientation car. The Tesla Model S is supposed to be a sedan, starting in the $70,000 range, whereas the Ioniq 5 is starting around the $40,000 range, most being closer to the 50, especially if you get all-wheel drive. With that being said, I think that there are some comparisons to be made. The Tesla Model S, I just don't feel is made as well. For instance, like this car only has 70,000 miles on it, similar to my N-Line, and the window squeaks. And that's every single time you roll up and down the window. There's a couple creaks in here. It's not like a particularly big deal, but there definitely are some, and in an expensive car like this, that's just not what you want. Whereas in the Ioniq 5, we didn't have any. And as far as the EV feel, I think they both have it. They both have big center screens. I will say that the menus in the Ioniq were easier to navigate and easier to figure things out. But I do think Tesla has something going here with their system, especially considering they're competing with Apple CarPlay. You know, you can't hook up your Apple CarPlay to this. So for instance, the only time I really was missing the CarPlay was with Spotify. Other than that, I think the system does a great job. The navigation menu, if I can even find it, is nice. I don't know why it's only halved right now. There we go. The map is great. It's big, it's easy to see. It's pretty clear on where you're going. So I don't mind any of that at all. But with all electric vehicles, and this isn't really like their problem, but I in particular, even in a fast EV such as the Tesla Model S, I just feel bored. There's no theater, there's no engine sound. It's just kind of boring. Like, you can go fast all you want, sure, and people won't even notice because they can't hear your car. But at the same time, like, it's just so underwhelming. Like, this car is extremely quick, but other than that, it's just kind of boring. And yeah, this would probably be a good daily driver option for people who are commuting on interstates, where you could really take use of that autopilot, take use of the comfortability of it, and the speakers are really good in here. So overall, I think it would be a good daily driver, but any sports car enthusiast would definitely get bored on a daily basis if this was their only vehicle. With that in mind, I would say I in particular wouldn't buy a Tesla Model S, but I also wouldn't be ashamed if someone else did. It drives really nice on the highway. At long, high speeds, like, you really don't feel the speed that you're at. And overall, I think that the charging station thing will kind of hash itself out as, we gain the infrastructure. And so I think on long road trips, you'd be perfectly comfortable taking this Tesla Model S with the range it has and the charging network that it has access to. That being said, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content.